This is the BetaFPV Meteor65 Pro, and today I'm getting it set up because I'm going to be using it to compete in a tiny whoop racing event called RaceGOW. I'll have videos about RaceGOW coming out on my channel, so more about that in another video. But today, we got to get this set up, and my policy has always been, as long as I'm doing something, I may as well make a video about it. I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're going to learn something today. If you've seen me do a setup video for a quadcopter before, this video is going to be very similar to that. The person who is going to most benefit from this video will be a person who has the exact same equipment that I have, so they can just follow along with the exact same setup. If you're looking for a more general setup video for quadcopter, I'd like to recommend to you my beginner build series. There's a link in the video description below. In the beginner build series, I go through the steps of building a 5-inch freestyle drone. But even if you're not building that exact 5-inch freestyle drone, then I go through the whole setup process and I go through it in a little bit more of a general, you've never seen this before way. Whereas in this video, my goal is mainly going to be to get this particular quadcopter up and flying. So I'll put a link down below if you're looking for that. But if this is the video you want to see, then let's get into it. And I guess the first thing I'm going to do is plug in. Here we'll start up Betaflight configurator, and we will go, hello, there we go. We will connect. Let's just see what we got here. Betaflight 430. So it is an old version of Betaflight. That's okay. A lot of times when I get bind and fly quadcopters, and this was sent to me by, thank you BetaFPV. This was sent to me by BetaFPV months ago. So it may not reflect what they're shipping with today, but a lot of times quadcopters will come with an older version of Betaflight on them. And I do not recommend that you rush to update them to the latest version of Betaflight, because when you flash different versions of Betaflight, the configuration doesn't carry forward. It's not like your phone where it just updates its firmware and everything is as it was. It'll wipe the configuration. The manufacturer has given us a perfectly good configuration, and I tend to just stick with it unless there's a killer feature that I want from a new version of Betaflight that makes me motivated to update. But what I will do is I will go to the presets tab, and I will immediately hit Save Backup. And I always save the backup configuration of bind and flies as I get them from the manufacturer, because it can, sometimes you screw up the configuration or you lose the configuration, or for some reason you need to get that factory configuration back. And it can oftentimes be hard to find that information on the internet from the manufacturer, sometimes impossible. So we'll go ahead and save this. I'll just leave the file name the default. That I'll be able to figure out which quadcopter this came from. It's got the date and so forth. And then I'll just make sure that, yep, okay, that all got saved out. I just open the file and glance at it to be sure that it isn't blank by accident. I've had that happen like one time. Would have been a disaster if I hadn't caught it. Then I'll just start looking at the configuration. And one of the things I want to remind myself about is what type of receiver this drone has. So this drone has an ExpressLRS receiver. I know that, but ExpressLRS receivers come in two flavors, SPI-based and serial-based. And the one that I would prefer to have is serial-based for various reasons. I have a video about why SPI-based receivers kind of suck. And I'll put a link to that in the video description if you're like dying to know about this esoteric information about ExpressLRS. But I can see here in the receiver tab, we do have a serial-based receiver, and that means the process of binding is going to be exactly the same as any other ExpressLRS device that we might have. And in fact, the way that I like to bind ExpressLRS is via the Wi-Fi Web UI method. Here's what that means. So notice that there is this fast flashing green LED on the flight controller, and that is the ExpressLRS receiver status LED. If we had a standalone ExpressLRS receiver, it would have an LED on it that would tell us things like if it's bound, if it's not bound, etc. This flight controller has the ExpressLRS receiver built in, but it still has a status LED that we can use to interpret the status of the receiver. And the fast flashing here means that it's in Wi-Fi mode, and what that means is I can get my phone or my computer has a Wi-Fi interface, and I can look for the ExpressLRS RX Wi-Fi network. And if I connect to that network, and when I go to connect, the password has already been remembered because I've done this before, but the password is ExpressLRS. I think it's all lowercase. It's either capital E or lowercase e, ExpressLRS. When I connect, Then I can open a web browser and go to 10.0.0.1, and it's my ExpressLRS update page. And it's a good thing that I did this because this receiver has a very old version of ExpressLRS on it. This is why I always connect to the web UI, at least the very first time I get a new receiver. There are ways to bind ExpressLRS without going to the web UI. But then if they don't have compatible firmware versions, then they won't bind, and you might be a little bit confused about why. This just short circuits that. So this receiver has ExpressLRS firmware 2.4.0 on it, and the latest version of ExpressLRS is 3.3. And you don't need to be on the absolute latest version, but if your module has ExpressLRS 3.x on it, it will not bind to ExpressLRS 2.x on the receiver, so we must update the firmware on the receiver. And now, as I said previously, this is not a deep dive into all of the things that I'm going to show you. My goal here is just to get this configured so I can go out and fly it. So I'm going to need to link you to some of the deep dives if you need more instructions on how to do what I'm doing. And the video for this will be the fastest and easiest way to flash and update ExpressLRS. It's linked down in the video description below. What I need to do, though, is I need to open ExpressLRS Configurator and 332. That seems right. 332 is the latest. I'm going to choose the device category, and this is BetaFPV. So if I hit BetaFPV 2.4 gigahertz, none of this looks right. These are for all their standalone receivers, and there's some chance that like the 2.4 gigahertz Nano RX or the Micro RX, there's some chance that they would work, but it's not a good idea to flash a mismatched target to a receiver because it can brick the receiver and make it very hard to recover it. Instead, this is DIY 2400 RX. I'm going to look right here and get this name, and I'm going to look for that same name. We're going to go here. We're going to go to DIY 2.4, and we're going to look for, there it is, ESP8258. That's it. Why is there no, it's changed. Is there a generic target that matches? I'm going to go with this one. If I brick it, it'll be a pain in the ass to fix. But I don't like to flash over the Wi-Fi because it's glitchy in my experience. We're going to flash using the web browser. After the build is complete, this window will pop up, and there is a firmware.bin.gz file there. A lot of people notice that the GZ ending means it is a compressed file. It's like a zip file, and they think that they need to open it, and they need to take the firmware.bin file out and use that to flash. That is not the case. You're going to upload this firmware.bin file. We're going to do that here on the web page. We're going to choose File, and we're going to upload firmware.bin.gz, and the receiver has power cycled. It's gone back into its sort of just waiting mode. And if we wait 60 seconds, it will go into Wi-Fi mode. And yay, we're on 332 and it seems to be working. Binding phrase is flashed, so we do not need to bind. We are good to go. With that being done, I should be able to just turn on my ExpressLRS radio and have it already be bound, because when I flashed the receiver, my binding phrase went with the flash. I could also have typed that binding phrase into the web UI and just hit save if the receiver had come with the correct firmware on it, but since I needed to flash it anyway, you may as well just include your binding phrase in the firmware that you're going to be flashing. With that having been done, I should be able to power up my ExpressLRS receiver, and it should bind. Check the ExpressLRS Lua script. What do we got here? It's working. Why is it not? Oh, there it went. There it went. Just took a second. It just took a second to bind. That's kind of annoying, but okay. Let's take our packet rate up to 250 hertz. That's what I like to use for racing. It's a good balance of low latency and range. Here in the ExpressLRS Lua script, if we go down to Other Devices, and we should see the receiver there, ELRS 2400 RX. One of the options we can change there is the init rate, and that is the packet rate that the receiver will try when it first powers up. One of the reasons it took so long to bind, I think, is that it was searching all the packet rates and it hadn't found the one that I was on yet. Since I know that I'm going to be usually using 250 hertz, I'm going to change this to 250 hertz, and that should make it bind quicker when it first powers up. Let's see if it does. Oh, that was way faster. Yeah, it was like instant. Perfect. Let's see here now in the Betaflight receiver tab. My channels are all working correctly. The next thing I need to do is set up my aux modes. If you need more detailed instructions on how to set up your channel mapping, your endpoints, and your aux modes, again, I'm going to refer you to my beginner build series, and I'll put links in the video description to a very detailed, full explanation of how and why to do that. But I'm going to go to the presets tab, and I actually have a preset that I've made. There we go, standard aux configuration, and it will load my aux modes to this quadcopter and make them correct. Save and reboot. So now if I go to the modes tab, I've got my standard aux modes: arming mode, angle mode, beeper, and flip over after crash. Now beeper mode's not going to work because this quadcopter doesn't actually have a buzzer on it, so I'm going to check here for the beacon tones, and this will allow the motors to act as a beeper, so I can still get some beeps out of this guy if I like lose it in the grass or something. We'll save and reboot. What else do I need to change? I would like the on-screen. On-screen display is a mess. And I need to set up the rates. Again, I like to do that in the PID tuning, or in the presets tab rather. If I go to OSD, here's my JB OSD presets, and I'm going to choose, is it NTSC or PAL? I don't actually know. I'm going to guess that it's NTSC. This is an analog quad, so I'll select that. And I will pick. And then I also need rates, and I like to use the 533 racing rates right here, and that'll be great. If you're not sure about rates and how to find your best rates, I did a video where I take you through a methodical process for finding the perfect rates for you. And I'm going to put a link to that in the video description below. As well, if you kind of just don't have a sense of like, what do the rates do? What happens if you have like really high or really low rates? I've got a video where I tried the lowest and the highest possible rates. And I'll put a link to that in the video description below as well. Lots of links in the video description below. What are you going to do? My OSD is set up the way that I usually like it. Meteor65 Pro. Oh, I see. Setup. We'll go to configuration. We'll change the craft name to JB so that OSD works right. Is that it? Are we done? I mean, everything else should be ready to go. Oh, one more preset, an RC Link preset. The ELRS, you should always load the RC Link preset for the RC Link that you're using. This is the ELRS 250 Hz RC Link preset. We are going to choose racing, because we're racing, right? And don't need that. And we're good to go. Let's check the video transmitter settings. That's right. We go to the video transmitter tab. Nope, that's not it. Video transmitter tab. Race band, please. I prefer race band channel 8 because it avoids my Wi-Fi network. 25 milliwatts is fine for racing. We'll leave that alone. What power does this go up to? 400. Impressive. And save. And now, very handy to have is a little fan, a little battery-powered fan you can blow on a video transmitter to cool it off when you're working on the bench. So, let's see if this brings back the video. Come on, baby. Video. Yes. Yes. It just wouldn't power up because the battery was, because USB was plugged in, I guess, or something. But it's working now. Now this quadcopter is ready to fly. And in case you forgot from the beginning of the video, the reason I'm doing all this is because I am participating in an event called RaceGOW. And you can participate too. It's really cool. What you do is you set up this track using PVC pipe and standard connectors. You set up this track in your home. And it is a standard track that everybody sets up and everybody races. And then you submit your times via the internet. You can win real prizes like cash prizes and product giveaways. You can win prizes for having the fastest times. It is a super, super fun thing to do. Even if you don't win, just to be able to get out there. Racing just makes you a better pilot, makes you a better freestyle pilot, makes you a better pilot overall. I'm really looking forward to participating in it. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the video description and a card on screen to my first attempt, which I'm about to go record. So that card on screen. See you there.